Welcome to the Black Writers Studio, a podcast presented by the Hurston Wright Foundation and hosted by Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman. The Black Writers Studio is dedicated to showcasing Black writers who are transforming the world today with their literary pen and creating a legacy for the culture. Taylor Johnson is from Washington, D.C. He is the author of Inheritance, winner of the Norma Faber First Book Award from the Poetry Society of America, and named as a Best Poetry Book of 2020 by the New York Times. Johnson has received fellowships from Cave Canem, the Nicholson Project, Callaloo, and other organizations. He is the winner of the 2017 Larry Neal Writers Award from the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities. His work has appeared in Poetry Magazine, the Paris Review, and Scalawag, among other literary journals. Johnson is a student of the percussive architecture of go-go music. All right, Taylor. I have been waiting patiently for this opportunity for us to get together because I met you recently this past summer at the welcome reception for our Howard University Writers Week participants. And you introduced yourself to me. And the first thing that you told me was that you were one of the participants back in the day of the Hurston Wright team program. And so that just brought me so much joy because when I even conceived this podcast, I definitely wanted it to be a space for Black writers, but I also wanted it to be an opportunity to talk to Black writers who had some connection to Hurston Wright, to help me as the executive director learn more about our history. And so you definitely had history with Hurston Wright before me. So I would love it if you can start talking about that relationship, but within the context of your experience as a young writer growing up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really powerful time. The summer was, I must have been 15. This was 2006 summer. Yeah, whole summer long.
Wow.
I was at American University. My teacher was Laini Mataka, great Pan-African poet.
Yes, Mama Laini. Oh, she don't play.
Yeah, she doesn't play. Yeah, and what was great was everyone in my workshop was very cool. We're all high school students from around DC, different kind of educational experiences. I was going to school in Potomac, Maryland at the time, at Bullis. And really needing to be, because Bullis is predominantly white school, really needing to be around Black peers of my own in a learning environment was very empowering, and then to have it be about poetry was really beautiful. And for me, it just gave me so much confidence to continue writing poetry. I had read earlier in the school year, like the poetry of John Donne, T.S. Eliot, and Gwendolyn Brooks, and was really taken with that. But Miss Laini, she put me on to like Baraka really heavy, and Claude McKay, County Cullen.
Yes.
And so many poets. I mean, we had all gotten the Black Fire book, that book that Haki Madhubuti put out.
Yes.
So we had all gotten it in the class and just went through that. And it was great. I don't know. I tell people all the time, that's when my writing really became what it was, in this class of people, Black kids who are, 15, 16 years old, trying to write poetry and then just talking about the power of language. We had some students in the class who were, into hip hop, and it was just all encouraged. We were all very different, but it was all encouraged. And I really dig that.
Yeah. And that's what I got from you energetically. For you were one of the few people that attended. So we opened the welcome this summer to the public because our faculty were presenting, doing readings, so we wanted it to be open to other people, not just the participants. And you were one of the few people that took us up on that opportunity. And I just felt the fact that you were there is that it was due to having a positive experience with this program. And so and at that point we didn't know each other, and I had no idea about your history and who you are as a writer right now, the fantastic things that you've done, that you were doing. And so if you can just share with us, just moving from that experience as a 15-year-old in Washington D.C., getting your starting to plant your seeds and dig and growing your roots as a writer. What was that journey like? Where did you go from there? Participating in the Hurston Wright program, team program, where did you go from there, and who did you start to envision yourself as being as a writer?
Yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that summer was really important for me. Meeting Miss Laini and then, continuing to know her, she kind of put me in contact with a lot of people, just different poetry spots around DC. I ended up reading at this rally for like youth and teen violence in DC down at the theater, that's Sylvan Theater behind the Washington Monument. You know what I'm talking about? And I opened for, M1 of Dead Prez. She just called me up
What?
one weekend and was like, come do this. And so I, wrote a poem and,
Right. Oh,
but it just gave me
wow.
this deep
And
boost of
you're still a
confidence.
teenager at
I
this
was
point.
still 15 or
This is
16 at the time.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I don't know, it was a big boost for me to feel like somebody who I respected, also respected my voice and could see my
Right.
commitment to the craft and wanting to
Right.
continue with it. The next summer I was on the DC Youth Slam team.
Okay.
And so I had another community of, my peers in DC to work with poetry around and to just get to know each other through art, which was really powerful. And then I went to Oberlin College in Ohio and studied
Okay.
creative writing. Came
Who,
back and
who
taught.
who was leading the slam team when you were on it?
Oh man, so it was Lisa Pegram.
Oh my goodness,
Uh,
Lady Peacock.
yeah. Uh-huh. So Lisa Pegram, Jabari Exum.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
can we give an aside on who Jabari Exum is?
Yeah,
Jabari
Jabari's a good
Exum.
dude. Yeah.
Yes, and
Uh-huh.
especially now, this recording is gonna come out later, but we're approaching the weekend release of Black Panther.
Of the Black Panther,
Jabari
that's right.
Exum helped with
Yeah,
the
that's
choreography of
right.
the
And the
drummers
music.
in the
Yeah,
first
exactly.
Black Panther. Yeah. Oh, so
Yeah.
you just had all this connectivity to some of
Yeah.
DC's all-stars.
I mean, it was really beautiful growing up around people who made art
Yes.
as their primary way of being in the world, and just seeing that was a possibility that I had for myself, and being around
Yes.
all Black people also, like, that was really important to me too,
Yes.
to be in this space where, going to a school that was very white and, relatively elitist. um,
Yeah.
I didn't really have that on my day-to-day life, to see Black people in this way of making art and making community that
Yes.
is, wide, but also all Black. It was very powerful for me.
I can imagine. I can
Um,
imagine that just
yeah,
broadening your perspective in ways that you probably didn't even realize the depth of
yeah,
what was absent until
that's right.
you just
That's right.
blanketed in all of this. I can imagine that being powerful.
It
So
was incredible.
tell me, so I mean, these are these opportunities that you had as a child, as a young person, are some things that many adults can't really claim to have. So these are pivotal milestones. Where did you go from there? So you went to
Yeah,
Oberlin.
went to
Tell me,
Oberlin.
so tell
Study
me what,
creative writing.
yeah, so what happens after or in at Oberlin?
Yeah. Studied creative writing, Black studies, kept writing poetry. Knew myself a little bit more as somebody who was interested in language and in theory. I found the work of Fred Moten, who's a poet and theorist, Black poet and theorist, who works in performance studies. And yeah, so I found his work, and started thinking a little bit more horizontally about how I would like to see community around language and around art. Um, and have had, many opportunities to be in contact with him, which has been really important for me as well.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and then I left Oberlin. I started teaching in DCPS through a nonprofit for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then I went to the Callaloo Creative Writing Workshop at Brown University, where I had Bivy Francis and Greg Pardlow as my workshop instructors.
Okay.
And that was just a beautiful 2-week experience. Met some great friends there who I'm still very close to. Yeah, and then I just kind of kept going with it and committed full time to studying poetry and writing poetry and being someone who lives in a way that is dedicated to the not necessarily perfecting, but of understanding my language and my voice and sharing that in the way that I can. Yeah.
Right. And you know, you this year you became the inaugural poet in residence at the Guggenheim in New York. And as a museum, I personally absolutely love the space that we're in, where we're seeing all of this intersectionality in a different way. When we talk about intersectionality, we usually talk around identity and personhood in a different way, but in the arts and how, museums are now becoming these transformational places for writers and performance artists to show up, where it might be some reflection on the visual art that's hanging on the walls. And so these spaces are starting to recognize that. So you, once again, are in the mix of something innovative and new. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about that experience. First of all, what attracted to you to even want to apply for that experience, and what has that been like this year?
Yeah, I've had a great time. I originally applied because two friends of mine sent it to me in a text and like, you should apply for this. I was like, okay. So I just kind of threw my hat in the ring with it and was able to write a really good proposal. My partner really helped me out on that and wrote this thing that I felt good about, and I felt good about doing, even if I didn't get the
Tell
the
us about
opportunity
it.
to
Tell about this.
Yeah, so the original proposal that I wrote was like about seasonal engagements with the permanent collection at the Guggenheim, and having different panels around the work. But what ended up happening is after I got it, coming in at the season that I came in at, it shifted my perspective of how the whole thing was going to go. So my new proposal was this idea of the Temple of Spirit, and engaging this theme of the Temple of Spirit, which was something that the Guggenheim was called by one of its founders, Hilda Ribe, or Hilla Ribe rather. And she said this to Frank Lloyd Wright, who designed the building. And the building is like an interesting spiral structure. You kind of start at the top, and you have to work your way down. And yeah, so that was one of the themes that she had envisioned him designing the space to hold, the spirit of art, of engagement, and of this aesthetic idea of traveling through art collectively. And so I tried to really engage that with my year of programming. We've had, let's see, like 3 or 4 events so far. We have about 4 more left. Yeah, it's just been an exciting time, and I've engaged people who are like interdisciplinary, so they write poetry and they do another art, you know what I mean? So my first panel was 3 poets who are also movement or dancers, movement artists or dancers, and that was really beautiful. Yeah, I've had a few readings in the little gallery space in the cafe. I'm about to do a program with the teens. It's just been really great. And I think for me, it's just stretched my sensibility of what I can do as a poet, and the ways that I like to gather with people. Yeah, it's been dope.
No, I think they are so lucky to have you. Do you have, well, before I even jump ahead as to what you have planned after your residency there ends, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the piece that you had completed prior to applying to the Guggenheim. You had a book that came out in 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what are some of the themes?
Yeah, so I wrote Inheritance, and it came out in 2020, November 2020. So yeah, almost 2 years ago now.
During the pandemic.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I was pretty nuts, pretty wild time.
Right.
But I was lucky to engage a lot of people around it, which was really cool. Still do virtual readings and all that, which was fun. Yeah, so inheritance really is about my influences, you know what I mean? And the influences on my language. Um, a lot of it is very kinetic, and a lot of it I wrote, walking around DC, taking the bus, and then also some of it is kind of a look at my formation of imagination uh,
Mm,
in Virginia, where I lived with my grandparents for a little while in the Tidewater region.
okay.
Yeah, so some of that is the language of that kind of inheritance of the land and of
Yeah. Is
their
that because that's near Norfolk, right? Norfolk, Virginia?
uh kinda.
Oh,
It's the town is Heathsville.
okay.
Norfolk is a bit southeast of that, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
This is a town that's on the Chesapeake Bay
Okay.
and also on the Rappahannock River. Yeah.
Okay. Is
hmm
that area considered the shore?
Um, no, because it's not really near the Eastern Shore of Maryland. No.
No, not the Eastern Shore, but
Okay.
it's because my grandfather is from that area, but
Okay.
he would refer to it as the shore. But
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but my grandmother was from Norfolk, and so I
Okay.
never know what the proximity is because I'm
Yeah.
geographically challenged. But I just am wondering how close they are to each other.
Yeah.
But I know that Tidewater, they have a very rich arts community there because I hear
Yeah.
a lot about Tidewater arts and things that are going on in that area.
Yeah. I mean, the area is also really rich in like American history. Like you got a bunch of presidents who were born down there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting area. It's really full of like, yeah,
And
the
you talk
history of the
about that in your
formation.
book?
Not really. Not really. That's not really my concern, but
Okay.
mostly when I reference that area, I'm thinking about the dynamic between my grandparents and the ways that I saw them interact with each other, but also with the land and the things that they, provided for me in terms of my engagement with the natural environment there.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you have a piece that you'd like to share with us from the book?
sure. I would love to. This is called Lincoln Town Car. My grandfather would spell certain words so that the dog couldn't comprehend. OUTFOOD. The dog, that little bear fighter, ran into the road one day, buried in the yard now. And the next dog, he waited in the back room for my grandmother to return, heavy footed from around the corner. And when she didn't return, he remained there, unreachable as language. Something was off if we left the country. Fluid around the heart, not enough movement, syrup for blood. Leaving meant taking showers and my grandfather fixing my grandmother's hair. All of us clean shirted in the front seat of the Lincoln Town car. We shared a humid thought pressed as we were against the maroon leather, six-legged in the front seat. Before us, the highway unraveled, sorghum and corn and soy collapsing as the wind fell, listening for light. I listened for the muscadine swelling in the ditches on the waterlogged sides of the highway. I listened to the quiet narrow as we entered the city. I loved the language my grandparents spoke, saying nothing, holding both my hands, was the pines that set off sound in them. My grandmother stared out the windshield and into the hills, saying, "That man, that man." My grandfather shifted in his seat at the wheel, practicing owning something. I had a feeling that I was the last let into the kingdom of their distance. Something was owed. Neither side would spell it out. I counted the fallen pines as the car dipped through the hills in the tide water, lonely as a dog with the whole world inside. I counted the pines and put my voice inside them.
Beautiful. You
Thank you.
you just have such like this impeccable use of word, this impeccable and intentional use of your language, quiet of the narrow, you know, just, and it just rest. It's just the words just rest and hang in the air, and then they fall and they rest. Just beautiful, just very beautiful. And I love the way that you read. Tell me about how long it took you to write that, the book, the collection
Mhm.
itself, what that
Yeah.
process was like. Did you have all these wonderful people that you've had these relationships with now coming up? Were some of them your early readers before publication? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, I'll say that the people who, read these poems the earliest, I wasn't conscious of writing a book. In 2016, I began as a Cave Canem fellow, and I wrote some poems during that year and the following years. Um, but my earliest readers were two people. One was Dante Michaud, the poet Dante Michaud, and the other was the poet Philip B. Williams. Um, and they both saw this book in very early stages. I began, most of the poems in here began maybe in 2015.
Mhm.
And then I got to spend about 4 months in Paris in 2018, and was able to put something together that felt like something that was a book. I was actually asked
Mhm.
by a few presses if I had a book at that time, and it just so happened that I had enough poems that I felt like, sounded good together and kind of made a journey
Mhm.
in language together, which was really nice. Yeah, and then I guess the only other person who saw it was my partner after
Mhm.
that. So it's just three people. Um, and then it was published in 2020. And uh, yeah, I think
And
a
you
lot
know,
of the work,
the
yeah,
reason why I ask is,
uh-huh.
and you just say it's three. The reason why I ask is because as a writer that sometimes that revision process
Mm-hmm.
it's probably the hardest process that a creative can go through, where you're getting feedback from people, and it may be feedback that you don't want to hear, but it's usually around what is helping and hurting the journey that the storytelling that's taking place. And so I was curious to see how many eyes, and
Mm-hmm.
and feedback that you're getting, because your words, they seem almost as if like prayer. You present it
Mm-hmm.
also as if, in ritual, and that's prayer. And so I would I'm interested in how that feedback process looks for you. How do you receive that feedback, being someone who is just so intimately engaged in this process of writing, reflecting, and crafting, determining what goes into this collection? How did you receive the feedback to finally put together this first piece of work?
Yeah, I mean, I received it openly, you know what I mean? I think the first, I mean, I've also been in workshop for so long, like starting with First and Right, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I know what it's like to receive feedback. And I also know the importance of it. And because of that, I also know like I have a good knowledge of my voice, or I had a good knowledge of these poems, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I trust the people who I trusted with the work. I trusted them, you know what I mean? Like I trust that they're going to
Mm.
hear it when it's off, or give me the thing that I need to continue on with it. One piece of advice that I got that was really helpful, that kind of was outside of the space of editing or revising poems, was in 2017. I was at the Tin House workshop in Oregon, and my workshop leader was the poet Natalie Diaz, and
Mm.
she said like the thing that I needed to do was to find my people, you know, to
Mm.
really make sure that I was in community with other people who were doing this thing, or at least not even doing a thing, but being concerned with language and with art in this way. And I
Mhm.
took that to heart. So that's really been my journey, is like building community has been so important to me. And it's
Mhm.
not that we're always sharing poems with each other, but just like having people who I love and can trust to talk about anything, you know what I mean? But they also
Mhm.
have this sensibility of also being a poet or an artist in some
Mhm.
ways. It's
Mhm.
been very important for me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's important for me to hear. Someone who
Mhm.
is much older than you, but I think that's really what all of us are really trying to find, isn't it?
Yeah.
and the impact, if even just a little bit of your work is indicative of how important that is, I think that's something for all of us to aspire to, because one of the things is, with your writing, is that your voice is very evident. Your truth is very evident, and it seems like you're really crafting this artist life for yourself, that you're trusting the journey. So you don't really necessarily have like this big master plan, but there's certain things that need to be in place for this to be something that's a fit for you.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me what some of those non-negotiables have been for you on this artist
Yeah.
journey?
I mean, I think so. Right now, I'll say I'm in upstate New York. I'm at a residency that Jacqueline Woodson runs called Baldwin for the Arts. It's really
Really?
beautiful. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh,
And
tell us about that. Yeah.
well, I mean, it's just like a very beautiful space on some land, and you can really feel the energy that it was put into this space to cultivate it as a good space for artists to come and create work and have time to think about their work. So I've really been in that study this past week.
That's
But I
wonderful.
guess the non-negotiables in terms of art making and of living are just like being clear about what I need to continue. You know what I mean? I think I've just come around to that right now, in terms of like what I'm compensated for, just how I
Yes.
move in terms of the things that we need to live, just making money from
Yeah.
things and being serious about the labor that I do to maybe facilitate a workshop or even to produce a piece of written work. It is labor, so being serious about that kind of stuff, but also um, trying to remain open to community. So I just became the poet laureate of Takoma Park, Maryland, where I live right now. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Yeah. So it's
That's
just been,
major. That's so
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. It's been cool. I mean, I think it's a 3-year gig. So this first year, I'm really interested in knowing people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Getting to know people. Like, I'm trying to do office hours at the farmers market. You know what I mean? Just to be in touch with people. I think,
Yes.
yeah, the role of the artist, the role of poet feels kind of amorphous. You know what I mean? It's not really product driven like other forms of art making. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a painting that you can
Yeah.
see, you know what I mean?
Right,
So I
right,
kind of want to demystify that whole thing and just be embedded within the lives of the people who I'm around.
right.
Uh,
It seems like you're very attuned to creating these experiences for people.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's important to just be with people, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, that feels important. But also I'm recognizing how much being alone is also important.
Yeah.
To create
Yeah.
and to think. Yeah.
And then we were kind of forced to even we were forced to confront that with COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
now as we're starting to come into places, you're starting to realize, wow, there was some value in a lot of this um personal time that
Yeah.
many of us were forced to have, right,
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah.
And
I
I
know I
definitely
find
like,
myself really grappling with now as I have to come into these spaces, what am I really wanting to keep, and I know that I have to do when I'm in real time with folks, and what are those changes, what are those differences? Are you finding anything with your programming, with the Guggenheim, the things that you have planned for Takoma Park? Are you noticing that there's some shifts in the ways that you're creating these experiences as a writer for people, while we are still in the midst of a pandemic, but still coming into spaces with one another?
yeah, I think the main thing is just valuing everyone's interiority, you know what I mean? And
No,
knowing
write
that,
that down for me. I love
well, I
that.
mean, I think that what is so powerful about being an artist is like the way that I can feel very in touch with uh my interiority. My interior life is so it's big to me. It feels like a thing that I need to maintain and keep up, is just like the sense of self that I have and the sense of my language.
Mhm.
And when I go into community, I want to be beheld in that way. Like I would like my interiority to be acknowledged and held up. And so just creating space for people to have that acknowledgement. I think a lot of times especially with like the way that social media works, I think a lot of people are looking for spaces to be beheld or to be seen. And I just want to make spaces for people to feel that way, in a person-to-person way, if we can make that. And even if it's just digital, you know what I mean? I think that it feels good to be seen by somebody else and to be recognized in that way.
Yeah,
And
and to not and when you even are speaking to an interior self, it's not just being seen superficially, but being seen holistically as a full person.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I love that, Taylor. I love talking to you.
Yeah.
I love talking to you. Just you have there's so much meaning in everything that you say, and it's so thoughtful and important. And so much has been part of your journey in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only here because the people who let me be here, you know what I mean?
Well, that's you being humble, but you're an incredible spirit. But is there anything that you haven't done already that you envision for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in working with image. Like, I'm interested in working with film for sure. I'm interested in working more collaboratively with other artists, like dancers. I'm interested in extending my language into things that are fiction or prose based, just like more narrative work. And yeah, I'm always going to be interested in poems. Like, I still feel a renewed sense of my language all the time. I think I'm still learning how to be a poet. It never stops for me. It's always happening.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in the development of my voice in that way.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So as we come to the end of this conversation, for now, is there any information that you have for folks on how they can learn more about you, get that poetry book of yours, or participate in any of your upcoming events as Poet Laureate in Takoma Park, Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, Inheritance, you can get it online, I guess, at your local bookstore, or through Alice James' website. There's a link on my website to it, taylorjohnsonpoems.com. I'm trying to be better with my website. I'm not really doing a great job of that, but I will try to. I'm trying to find, maybe we can talk more about this offline, Khadijah, or just like after this, is just ways to be, because I feel like Hurston Wright is doing a good job of being connected on the internet. And I want to, take some of that knowledge myself too.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, definitely. We could talk about that, but they need to know where they can find you.
Yeah. So
are you on Twitter, or are you, because I think people are leaving Twitter in mass right now.
Yeah, I heard about that because someone bought it, right?
Right. Someone. Yep.
Somebody. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just around. I'm up in DC mostly.
Okay. When's your first program in Takoma Park? Anything you can invite us to?
I don't. So there's a monthly reading at the community center. The next one is November 17th.
Okay.
That I host, and there's, I think, 4 featured readers that evening. And then after that, I don't have anything planned. Like I said, this year is really just about being in the community and knowing people. Right.
Well, maybe we can maybe Hurston Wright can do something with you in 2023. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
That'd be beautiful.
All right. Well, I'm gonna end this conversation because we can go on for I think another 2 hours. But I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you. I thank you so much. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. You're so well deserving of all good things. But most importantly, I just want you to continue to be a vessel and to be an example. I think you're doing an incredible job as an artist and being your true and authentic self. And I look forward to whatever comes out of this opportunity as Poet Laureate, out of your residency where you are now. And I just say expect a call when we start bringing back the teen program for Hurston Wright, because you definitely you're part of our history and a good part of it. So thank you so much, Taylor. Have a good one.
All right, thank you so much.